Hello friends, welcome to Exam Decoder. We are continuing with PT365 Environmental Science module of VISIONIAS. We have already finished biodiversity topic that has been discussed in 4 parts. For more details you can check the playlist. In this part we will discuss the climate change. In the current video we are going to discuss this 2.1 and 2.2, that is nationally determined contribution, and second is international conferences, conventions and initiatives. In the next part we will discuss climate mitigation and adaptation. After that we will discuss terms in news and then organizations in news. Let's see the today's topic. This is a small topic, that is nationally determined contribution. In 2.2 international conferences, conventions and initiatives, we will study UNFCCC COP29. Next is key initiatives declaration launched at COP29, means all details of COP29 is there. India at COP29 Article 6. Next is climate finance and next is global environment facility. These two topics are different, like Antarctic Treaty and other initiatives in news. Till this we will discuss in the today's video. So let's start with the main topic. Let's start with the climate change. The first topic here is the nationally determined contribution. Okay, we will see the nationally determined contribution, but before understanding this nationally determined contribution, we should see the next topic, that is UNFCCC. Okay, this is given about UNFCCC COP29, but we will see first detail about the UNFCCC. Before looking to the UNFCCC, just understand the history. On 5th June 1972, a conference held at Stockholm named UN Conference on Environment, and actually it was the first conference on environment which tackled the major issues related to the environment. Because of that only we observe World Environment Day on 5th June. It was actually means World Environment Day started from 1973. Understood? 5th June 1972, this first major conference on environment took place in Stockholm, that was UN Conference on the Environment, and because of that 5th June is observed as the World Environment Day. After 20 years in 1992, Earth Summit was held in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. This was named as UNCED. It means United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. This Earth Summit is important. From this, major initiatives are taken related to different areas, like first is about the climate change. For this climate change, UNFCCC was formed, that is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and it was planned that every year COP will held, that is Conference of Parties will held. It was actually started from 1995. First Conference of Parties took place in 1995 in this Berlin, Germany. Some important UNFCCC are like Kyoto Protocol, you need to know, that is COP3, that held in 1997. Next is the Paris Climate Conference, that is COP21, that is in 2015. These are important, you need to see in detail all of this. Okay, the second area majorly discussed was sustainable development. Related to the sustainable development, the first was Agenda 21. This was actually the agenda for the 21st century. Then MDG was Millennium Development Goal was formed, that was completed in 2015. After that SDG, that is Sustainable Development Goal, that is target from 2016 to 2030 was formed. 2016 was formed. The main aim is the sustainable development, and other was conservation of biodiversity. This is CBD, this is conservation of biodiversity. Under this you may heard about this Cartagena Protocol, and also Nagoya Protocol. So this is the overall structure of this UNFCCC. So whatever we are discussing, whatever here it is given about this nationally determined contribution, the origin is from the this Earth Summit, that is in the Rio de Janeiro, and from there UNFCCC, that is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, was formed. The main aim was to combat the dangerous human interference with the climate system. The main aim was to combat the dangerous human interference with the climate system, and for this they have started COP, that is Conference of Parties, and the first COP started in 1995. That is in the Berlin, that is in Germany, and then was COP2. COP3 is important. UPSC has already asked question in men's also from the COP3, that is Kyoto Protocol. The main aim of the Kyoto Protocol was to reduce the greenhouse gas emission. After that, we need to know about this Paris Climate Change Conference, that is COP21. Initially, the nationally determined contribution, whatever topic here is given, was introduced in the Paris Climate Change Conference of COP21, that is in the 2015. So let's see in detail. Just wait, I need to change my pen. Now this is good. This is good. Okay. First is nationally determined contribution, NDC. Nationally determined contribution. India's nationally determined contribution, NDC, each party to the Paris Agreement. We have already discussed about the Paris Agreement, that is in the 2015 COP21. You need to know this. Is required to establish an NDC, that is nationally determined contribution, and update it every 5 years. Okay, you need to update it in every 5 years. India submitted its first NDC in 2015 and updated in 2022. Here a comparison is given, like reduce the emission intensity of its GDP from 2005 level. That is, previously in 2015 it was 33 to 35%. Next updated NDC is 45%. Actually, this has already been achieved in 2019. The 33% target has already been achieved in 2019. So it is updated to 45% by year 2030. Okay, here one term is given, that is emission intensity. What is emission intensity? It is actually the amount of the greenhouse gas emission produced per unit of economic output. Generally, we use CO2 emission per unit GDP. Next target parameter here is cumulative electric power installation capacity from non-fossil fuel based energy. This is non-fossil fuel based energy. Initial target was 40%. We have already achieved this 40% target. We have already achieved a decade ahead also. A decade ahead, because we have to achieve this 40% by year 2030, but we have already achieved in approximately 2021. We have already achieved this 40% target. So next updated NDC is 50% from the non-fossil. Remember that in the non-fossil, nuclear power plant is also included. Non-fossil nuclear power is also included. Okay. Next target parameter is create additional carbon sink through additional forest and tree cover. The previous target is 2.5 to 3 billion tons of CO2 equivalent. This has remained same. Means we have to produce additional carbon sink through tree or forest cover. Means you have to increase the number of tree or the forest area that can do carbon sequestration of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of CO2 equivalent. Here one more important point is given, that is India's in its updated NDC of 2022 has included a component of mass movement for life, that is lifestyle for environment, as a key to achieve one of its qualitative target. Life, that is lifestyle for environment, is nothing but a eco-friendly lifestyle that can reduce the environmental impact. What it actually means, that eco-friendly lifestyle? Eco-friendly lifestyle, it means we can use 3R technique, that is reduce, reuse and recycle. We can use the save energy methods like use LED bulbs. We can also act for the conserving water, sustainable transport. These factors can be included in this lifestyle for environment. That is actually adopting the eco-friendly lifestyle, nothing else. Moving to the next, that is related concepts. Next is India's Panchamrit. Actually, India's Panchamrit was given in COP26. This is given in COP26, that is in Glasgow in year 2021. You know where the Glasgow is? Glasgow is actually in Scotland, UK. Actually, what is this India's Panchamrit? India actually presented 5 nectar elements. 5 nectar elements for the environmental conservation or environmental action. First year was reach 500 gigawatt non-fossil energy capacity by 2030. Here it is written non-fossil energy. It means it will also include the nuclear energy. Next, see the second point. Meet 50% of its energy requirement from renewable energy by the 2030. In this, nuclear energy is not included. So 50% of energy requirement by renewable energy. And here the first point is the 500 gigawatt from the non-fossil energy. Both are different points. Next, third point. Reduction of total projected carbon emission by 1 billion tons from now to 2030. It directly means we have to use the energy efficient equipments and technology. The fourth point here is reduction of carbon intensity of economy by 45% by 2030 over 2005 level. We have already discussed the carbon intensity term. Next, fifth point here is achieving the target of net zero emission by 2070. This is actually carbon neutral concept. It means whatever the carbon will be emitted, it should be the absorbed or sequestration of the carbon should be done. So what is given? This is the final target, achieving the target of net zero emission by 2070, that is carbon neutral by 2070. See the next point here is India's long-term low carbon development strategy, that is LTLDC, low carbon development strategy, are submitted to UNFCCC. India has submitted it 2022, mentioned that financial resources will be required to install renewable energy power plants, upgrade the transmission grids and introduce energy storage system, etc. So India showed here its financial requirement to move towards the renewable energy. Moving next. Okay, let's come to UNFCCC COP29. That is, why it is in news. COP29, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, held in Baku, Azerbaijan. Place, you need know the place is important. Ending with the Baku Climate Unity Pact and various agreements. We have already discussed the conference of the parties, COPs. Okay, just see. COP is UNFCCC's highest decision-making body, where UNFCCC member annually review the climate progress and negotiate commitments. COP 30 will occur in Belém, Brazil in November 2025. Okay, so this is important. By November 25, you will have written your mains exams also. So it is important for the interview purpose, not for even mains. We have already discussed that COP meeting was held in Berlin. The first COP meeting held in Berlin in Germany 1995. See the key outcomes of COP29. The first here is new collective quantified goal on climate finance, that is NCQG. That is new collective quantified goal on climate finance, or this is also Baku finance goal. This is also called Baku finance goal because COP29 took place in Baku. That's why Baku finance goal. Okay, let's see the details. Goals for financing climate action in developing countries. Triple the finance to USD 300 billion annually by 2035. Previous goal is 100 billion. Efforts to mobilize 1.3 trillion annually by 2035 from public and the private sources. Okay, you know the origin of NCQG, that is new collective quantified goal. This was decided in 2015 Paris Climate Summit COP21 that before 2025 we will establish NCQG. And what is this triple finance to USD $300 billion? Actually in 2009 it was decided that 100 billion, that is $100 billion was given by this developed country to the developing country. But it is now changed. This is increased to $300 billion annually by 2035. Means it will increase stepwise, like this year is 100, then 130, like this they will increase to $300 billion by year 2035. This is already a difficult task to give this $300 billion and to achieve this 1.3 trillion annually by 2035, as you also know that US has already exit or withdrawal from this Paris Climate Agreement. Okay, next see carbon market and Article 6. Finalize the rule for Article 6, that is related to the international carbon market of the Paris Agreement. What is carbon market first? What we do first in market? In market, we do either buy or sell something. It is like the market only where the carbon is sell or bought. How it is done? Like it is, you understood first what is carbon market? It is actually a trading system where buying or selling of the carbon credit is done, like to reduce the greenhouse gases. Okay. So in general, what is done? If a developed country wants to produce something which is more carbon intensive, it means that will produce more carbon dioxide or greenhouse gas into the environment. In that case, it will buy the carbon credit from the other countries, like developing countries where the emission is already very high. They are not using very green technology and all these things. Okay. So for this carbon market, there was no a specified rule was there. So earlier, what carbon trading was done or not? Of course it was done. Of course it was done, but there was no certain rule for the carbon market. So this is the great achievement of this COP29, where they have finalized the rules for Article 6, which is related to the international carbon market of the Paris Agreement. Further also we'll see details about the Article 6. Okay. Next is about the transparency. As we have understood, there are targets to reduce the carbon emission. But how will you know? There should be something which will tell like they have reduced or not. This is known as for transparency. All transparency negotiation items included enhanced transparency framework. That is including enhanced transparency framework. Enhanced transparency framework establishes a system for countries to report on their climate action, including greenhouse gas emission, mitigation and adaptation efforts. Now it will look into the different aspects where the claim of the country can be seen. First submission of biennial transparency report by 13 countries under the Paris Agreement. BTR, that is biennial transparency report, are the regular reports submitted by the countries under the Enhanced Transparency Framework. Baku Declaration on Global Climate Transparency and Baku Global Climate Transparency Platform launched to support the full implementation of Enhanced Transparency Framework. So this Baku Global Climate Transparency Platform is launched to support the full implementation of Enhanced Transparency Framework. Understood? So it is important to maintain the transparency in the carbon emission or sequestration, whatever this carbon market and everything it will cover. Next is about the adaptation. You know the difference between adaptation and mitigation? See, what is adaptation? If you actually reduce the amount of carbon emission or greenhouse gases, it is actually called mitigation. It is actually mitigation because you are removing the problem. And if you adapt to the effect which is produced by the greenhouse gases, or you can say the carbon emission, like what will happen? That is like global warming. Then it is called adaptation. Means you are ready to accept the problem and you are adapting with the changing climate. Let's see what it is given. Launched the Baku Adaptation Roadmap to advance implementation of adaptation as per Article 7 of the Paris Agreement. We have already seen this Article 6. Next is this Article 7 is also given. And Baku High Level Dialogue on Adaptation to enhance UAE framework for the global climate resilience. Last year COP occurred in this UAE. So UAE framework for global climate resilience implementation. Next is establishing a support program for implementing National Adaptation Plan for least developed countries. NAP, that is National Action Programs, are comprehensively documented outline countries' medium and long-term strategies and priorities for adapting impact of the climate change. Next is indigenous people and local communities. It is written, adopted by Baku Work Plan and renewed the mandate for facilitative working group of the local communities and indigenous people platform. What it is actually, it is difficult for the indigenous people and the local communities put their voices over this international conferences. So for them there is facilitative working group, that is FWG, of the local communities and indigenous people, that is LCIPPP. So they put the issues related to indigenous people and local communities. Next is FWG was established in COP24, not important, to further operationalize LCIPPP. Implementation of working plan will begin in 2025 with 3 focus areas. First is knowledge exchange, second is capacity building for this engagement, third is integrating diverse values and knowledge system into climate policies. Next is about the gender and climate change. Extended the enhanced Lima work program on gender and climate change for another 10 years. Actually, this gender and this climate change was discussed in Lima summit that took place in COP20, that is actually COP20 in 2014. Lima work program on gender. This was Lima work program on gender to include gender considerations under the convention and the Paris Agreement. At COP25, parties agreed a 5-year enhanced Lima work program on gender and its gender action plan was launched. Next is issues pending. Issues pending. There is deadlock on mitigation work program. Division persists over the fossil fuel role, with the global stocktake assessment becoming a point of controversy in measuring the climate progress. Next round of nationally determined contribution has been postponed ahead of COP30. Next is issues pending. Deadlock on mitigation work program. This is division persists over the fossil fuels role, with the global stocktake assessment becoming a point of controversy in measuring the climate progress. Next round of nationally determined contribution has been postponed ahead of COP30. So you understand, India is not agree on this mitigation work program because the developed countries giving target. They are giving target for the stock assessment, means how much carbon they have reduced. Like developed country is forcing to reduce the carbon emission, and it is not possible for the developing countries to reduce directly the use of the fossil fuel, because of course the development of any country, the energy is the basic factor, and we are more dependent on fossil fuel. We are adapting with the climate change, and also of course reducing, but with the fulfilling the demands of the country. So this creates the deadlock on the mitigation work program, and of course you have understood this. Postponed ahead of this national NDC has been postponed ahead of COP30. Next is given about the UNFCCC. We have already discussed the UNFCCC, that is adopted in 1992 Earth Summit, that is in Rio de Janeiro, and entered into force in 1994. Headquarters is in Bonn, Germany, and the objective is to stabilize the greenhouse gas emission that concentrates in the atmosphere to prevent the dangerous anthropogenic interference with the climate system. 198 parties are there. India is also included in that. Okay, there are some key agreements related to that. That is Kyoto Protocol, we have already discussed, that is in 1997, that is in the COP3. Binding commitment for developed nation to reduce the greenhouse gas emission. Next is the Paris Agreement, that is COP21. This is in the 2015 Global Accord to limit the temperature rise below 2 degrees C, aiming for 1.5 degrees C. It means we have to keep the global rise in temperature below 2 degrees C before industrialization level, and preferably it should be 1.5 degree. So don't confuse in this 2 degree and 2.5 degree. We have to keep the temperature below 2 degree, but preferably it should be less than 1.5 degree before the pre-industrial level. Okay, these are the key initiatives, declarations launched at COP29. First is reducing methane from organic waste declaration. We all know methane is the second most important greenhouse gas. First is the CO2 and second is the methane. Now they are targeting on methane also, that is reducing methane from organic waste declaration. From where generally the methane is produced, where there is lack of oxygen, in that case methane is formed. Or you can say generally in the case of anaerobic reactions, methane is formed. Okay, this is launched by actually UNEP, convened Climate and the Clean Air Coalition. What is its aim? Aim is to set sectorial target to reduce the methane from the organic waste. So they will divide the different sectors which is producing methane and will fix target on that. So to reduce the emission of methane from that. Support the implementation of 2021 Global Methane Pledge launched at COP26. 35 countries excluding India, you need to remember that excluding India, representing 47% of the global methane emission from the organic waste. Means India is not included in this. Why not included in this? Because what is the main source? I told you that is anaerobic reaction. Generally in the case of agricultural field, that is in the wetlands or in the rice or paddy production, too much amount of this methane gas is released. Even in animal rearing also there is too much amount of methane is released, and India is not going to sign this type of initiative which will impact its agri and animal husbandry sector. Okay, moving to the next is Global Energy Storage Grid Pledge. This is COP29 presidency. It set target for 2030 deploying 1500 gigawatt of the energy storage in the power sector globally. This is more than 6 times the level of 2022. Global grid deployment goal of adding or refurbishing 25 million kilometer of grid. What is grid? The electricity is supplied through grid, means the distribution of electricity is done through grid. You have two options, either store it and supply it, or produce or directly send it to the grid and use it at that time only. As we know, AC current cannot be stored, DC current can be stored. So AC current is used in generally grid. Okay, these are the basic concept you must know. Next is Green Energy Pledge, Green Energy Zone and Corridor. This is launched by COP29 presidency in partnership with UNIDO, UNFCCC and UNFCCC. These all are not important. What is the aim here? Promoting the green energy zones for tackling climate change. Green energy zone acts as centralized hub for the high quality valuable renewable energy sources, renewable energy infrastructure storage. So they will produce more green energy. Green energy zone will be created and different corridors for the green energy will be generated. Next is about the hydrogen declaration. What is the aim? Accelerate production and use of the clean hydrogen. Of course, this is not legally binding document, not requiring changes to the participating countries' national laws. Next is about Baku Harmonia Climate Initiative for Farmers. This is done by COP29 presidency, and see this, FAO, Food and Agricultural Organization. Actually, it aims at acknowledge fundamental role of farmers as agent of the climate action. It is hosted by FAO. You need to remember Baku Harmonia by this is FAO is more important here in presidency, COP29 presidency with FAO. Okay, it is hosted by FAO as a part of the Food and Agriculture for the Sustainable Transformation Partnership. Actually, FAO was already running this FAST program, and it is actually the part of this FAST program. FAST is multi-stakeholder platform established in COP27, that is in the 2022, to strengthen quantity and quality of the climate finance in agri-food system. Understood? Next is Climate Finance Action Fund. This is launched by Azerbaijan. What it means? Azerbaijan is going to give the money or not? No. This is not the case. Azerbaijan has created this fund. Azerbaijan, that is in Baku, has created this fund. Okay, what is the aim? It is to support the climate projects in developing countries meeting next generation NDC to keep within 1.5 degrees C. It will capitalize with contribution from the fossil fuel producing countries and companies across oil, gas and coal. The countries which are producing the fossil fuel will contribute into this. The target and these are not important, that is becoming this operationalized post conclusion. These all are not important. And it is launched by Azerbaijan. So headquarters is in the Baku, Azerbaijan. Of course not important in this. Next is Baku Initiative for Climate Finance Investment and Trade Dialogue. This is actually launched in COP29 presidency, co-facilitated by, this is UNCTAD, that is United Nations Trade and Development and United Nations Development Program. What is its aim? Its aim is advance nation ambitious and action through the utilization of the climate finance, investment and trade as per UNFCCC and Paris Agreement, so that they can properly utilize the climate finance, investment and trade and use for the development of the country. Next is global matchmaking. Let's see, if an industry is polluting, so if you will provide a technology which is less polluting and less carbon emission will be there, so it is the match for both technology and industry. This is like global matchmaking. This is launched by United Nations Industrial Development Organization. What is its aim? Aim is to accelerate the decarbonization of heavy emitting industries in emerging and developing economies. So it will try to match the need of the industries with the technology. Next is Declaration on Green Digital Action. This is harnessing digital technologies to accelerate climate action, promote sustainable development, bridge digital divide. This simply means by the use of digital technologies, we can go ahead with the green economy. Next is Continuity Coalition for Climate and Health. It is to advance the implementation of health commitment from the previous COPs and integrate health into climate action. It means already in the different COPs, topic health is already discussed. So this is in continuation with this the earlier COPs. It wants to tell continuity correlation. It means earlier also they have talked about the health commitments, and this they are continuing with that coalition for the climate and health, and the country will go ahead with this. Next is about the Baku Dialogue on the Water for the Climate Action. This is aimed at build collaboration between COP on water and its interplay with the climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution and desertification. It means the different areas has been covered in this Baku Dialogue on Water for Climate Action. Next is 1.5 Partnership for Action on Climate Transition, that is PACT. You need to remember the word PACT, P-A-C-T, that is Partnership for Action on the Climate Transition. This is foster stronger collaboration between the private sector and the government for achieving 1.5 degree aligned nationally determined contribution by 2025. We know it is difficult to keep the temperature of 1.5 degrees C before the industrialization level. So this is the Partnership for Action on the Climate Transition Program. This is mobilizing the financial sector and support the creation of transition plans, work through local financial centers including FC4S members, that is Financial Center for Sustainability. Next is the other initiatives, COP29 Declaration on Enhanced Climate Action in Tourism. It aims to mobilize the tourism sector. It means for climate action, they will mobilize the tourism sector to reduce the carbon footprint, enhance climate resilience and promote sustainable practices. Next is Global Energy Efficiency Alliance, launched by UAE to double the global energy efficiency rates by 2030. Next is Hydro 4 Net Zero LAC initiative. What is the hydro here? Is it hydrogen? No, it is hydropower. Here hydro for net is for the hydropower, not for the hydrogen. And what is this Net Zero LAC initiatives? LAC is Latin American and Caribbean countries. It aims to develop modernized sustainable hydropower infrastructure. Next is Global Alliance for Pump Storage. What is this pump storage? Let's see first. What is this Global Alliance for Pump Storage, launched with the 30 governments and international agencies? What is this pump storage now? Actually, for pump storage, this is important. You should know the pump storage. Actually, I'm drawing it here. What is this pump storage? This is for the hydroelectric energy storage. What they do means there are two reservoirs. One is at higher altitude and other is at lower altitude. They moves water between the two reservoirs. Let's assume like you are generating electricity from solar. What they will do, and this solar energy becomes excess. So what they will do, by the use of this solar, they will fill the water in this reservoir. And then again, when you want to use this electricity, then again water will come into this reservoir and will move the turbine. Electricity will be generated. So they use the different elevation. They use the different elevation to store energy. You can say to store energy they are using. So this global alliance for pump storage, this is. Next is about rising ambitions and accelerating delivery of climate finance. This is report published by the independent high-level expert group on climate finance. Actually, this report is produced by this independent high-level expert group, which is telling about the global investment required for the climate action is around 6.3 to 6.7 trillion per year by 2030. What we have studied, that is $300 billion. $300 billion we have studied, and it is telling 6.3 to 6.7 trillion dollar by year 2030. The name of report is Rising Ambitions and Accelerating Delivery of Climate Finance. Next is India at COP29. India clarified its climate negotiation stance at UNFCCC COP29. The first here is India's stance proposed a goal of 1.3 trillion annually under the NCQG, with 600 billion coming from the grants or equivalent resources. So it was talking about $300 billion. India talked about the $1.3 trillion annually, in which 600 should be this grant or equivalent, means there should be no loan or nothing that should not be written. 600 billion should come under this grants or equivalent resources. It opposed the changes to scope of mitigation work program and attempted to alter the temperature goals in the Paris Agreement. We have earlier discussed this, that India opposes the changes to scope of mitigation work program. It is talking more about the adaptation also. Next is India asserts that developed countries should provide financial and technological support to the developing country for the just transition. Actually, India in the last COP, India suggested lead IT, that is leadership in industrial transition. So it is telling the developed countries should provide the financial and technological support to developing countries for just transition in the field of industry, like low emission transition it is talking about. Next is it opposed follow-up mechanism for global stock take outcome, criticized the UAE dialogue text for it lacks connection to finance imbalance and mitigation centric language. Global stock take is a process for countries to see whether they are collectively making progress towards meeting the goals of the Paris Agreement once every 5 years. That is about the transparency. We have already discussed this global stock take. India is opposing this also. It is called for the clear indicators to measure progress. Next is it is called for the clear indicators to measure the progress on adaptation, means it is focusing more towards the adaptation, opposes the use of the third party database, supported the establishment of the Baku roadmap. So it is telling not to use the third party database, and there should be clear cut indicators to measure the progress on adaptation. Next is India at COP29 side events. There are multiple side events also there, like disaster resilient infrastructure. What is disaster resilient infrastructure? If there is a possibility of disaster, then there should be the infrastructure which is resilient to it, like with the CDRI focused on the climate resilient infrastructure. That is $8 million for 12 small island developing states projects announced. Next is lead IT meet. This is already I talked. This is leadership in industrial transition meet co-hosted with the Sweden, aimed at accelerating low carbon industry transition. Next is energy transition with the global south with ISA, that is International Solar Alliance, a spotlight solar energy role in developing nations energy shift. Other is India Sweden industry transition partnership, etc. This is again lead IT meet with the Sweden, then again India Sweden industry transition partnership. Next is Article 6. Why in the news? After a decade of negotiation, the rules for carbon trading under the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement have been finalized. We have talked about the Article 6 of the carbon trading. Even though, let's see what are the details given here. It provides mechanism for countries to cooperate in achieving their nationally determined contribution through the carbon market, consisting of two market-based and one non-market-based approach. What it tries means how the countries will help, how the country will cooperate to achieve their NDC. This is through carbon trading. This is done through carbon trading. Means there will be a market, there will be some buyers and suppliers, and all these things will be there. So it is written here, carbon market is a trading system where entities buys carbon credit to offset their greenhouse gas by supporting projects that reduce or remove the emission. Next it is written here, one tradable carbon credit generally equals 1 metric ton of the carbon dioxide. 1 metric ton of the carbon dioxide, you should know this, or equivalent amount of different greenhouse gases. Means it is not only about the carbon dioxide, it is about the other greenhouse gases reduced, sequestered or avoided. Carbon trading was introduced in Kyoto Protocol 1997. I hope you understand this word carbon market, carbon credit and carbon trading. Okay. Let's see the mechanism under this Article 6. There are two approaches given here, market-based approach and non-market-based approach. Let's see what is given in the mechanism under Article 6. This is market-based approach and the non-market-based approach. In the market-based approach, let's see, these number of article is not important. You don't need to remember 6.2, 6.4. Just you need to know the market-based approach. What is this market-based? First is the decentralized approach for bilateral cooperation. It simply means if India ties with some other country about this carbon credit, it can do. Means this is just about the bilateral relation. So this is decentralized approach for the bilateral cooperation. Trading of international transfer mitigation outcome, emission reduction that results from mitigation action, it corresponding adjustment in NDC are made on trade of ITMO. Next is centralized approach. What is this centralized approach? It means there will be one central carbon market from which any country can buy or sell this carbon credit. That is this centralized approach termed as Paris Agreement crediting mechanism, establishing a global carbon market. Means there is no individual country or bilateral relations. There is one centralized market from which a carbon credit can be bought. Next is non-market based approach. Non-market based approach, it actually includes the non-market approach to promote mitigation and adaptation. No trading of emission reduction is involved. It means there is no trading of carbon, no carbon credit trading is here. It involves more than one participating party. What it actually means, if they are not marketing the carbon, then what they are doing actually? You can think like it is doing a qualitative approach. Qualitative approach means quality wise they are doing something. If the country is granting something or giving loan to develop the green technology, it comes under the non-market based approach. Moving to the next is about the corresponding adjustment. This is not important to study the corresponding adjustment, even though just see changes made in the country's emission level to reflect the transfer, export or acquisition import of ITMO. Whatever the adjustment, like if country is giving some carbon credit to other, what will be the impact on this country? That is all about the corresponding adjustment. See, three different cases based on the different types of targets and measured in NDCs. GHG's greenhouse gas matrix example, economy wide annual level greenhouse gas emission. Next is non-greenhouse gas matrix, policies and measures within a country's NDC. Not important, you don't need to study all these things. Okay. Let's look into the difference between carbon trading of Kyoto Protocol and Paris Agreement. First, see the aspect, that is scope of participation. In Kyoto Protocol, it was limited to the developed countries. Okay. So only developed country can host the project in the developing country. Now it is inclusive of all the countries. Next is adaptation funding. There is in adaptation funding, in Kyoto Protocol, share of proceeds from the clean development mechanism projects directed to the adaptation fund. Now it is limited to 5% of the proceeds from the Article 6.4 transactions allocated to this global adaptation fund. See this is 6.4, means if this carbon traded is from the global carbon, means global carbon market, then this 5% of this will be transferred to the global adaptation fund. Next, looking into the market scope, focus on the project based mechanism like the clean development mechanism and joint implementation. Now it is combined with the market based and the non market based approaches that we have seen earlier. Legacy credits, what is this? Allowed use of older credits for inactive projects causing oversupply concern. Okay, and now it is changed in Paris Agreement. It is changed. What rule has been set? Like restricts legacy credits only post 2013 credit. It is required also. What is legacy credit? If you will see, suppose there is one industry you have closed, means in that country it is being closed in like 1950, it is already being closed, and the country is telling like for the environmental issues, like environmental concerns, if you will see, I have closed my old industry in 1950 or 1960, whatever. Okay, even though the credit is given, so what happens? Causing oversupply concerns, means whatever industry is there, that is oversupply of that is there. If it is polluting, it is counted into that, but it is now restricted to only post 2013 credit. This point is important also. Like if the company is closed before 2013, there is no use of the getting credits from that closure. Got it? Now is the climate finance. Developing countries are disappointed with enhanced new collective quantified goal on the climate finance. We have already discussed, like India is also not happy with the NCQG. Next is about NCQG. It is proposed at the COP21 for settling a new climate finance goal post 25. Followed the unmet 100 billion annual target set in 2009, which is also even difficult to deposit. Now it is targeting $300 billion. Article 9 of the Paris Agreement mandates developed country to provide financial support to the developing nation. So financial support should be given to the developing nation. Next is about the climate finance. It is local, national or transnational funding from the public, private and alternate sources to support the climate change mitigation and adaptation, particularly the developing countries vulnerable to the climate change under UNFCCC. What are the key facts about the climate finance? 90% of the climate finance goes to the mitigation actions. Actually, what India wants, that the more fund should be goes towards the adaptation also, and 90% is going towards the mitigation techniques, means how we can reduce the amount of the carbon, and not about the adapting the environment. 94% of the existing climate investment is either through debt or equity. What is debt or equity? If it is given in the form, that is return seeking. Like 94% of the existing climate investment is return seeking. It means they are giving like a loan or what? This is giving like loan. So it is problem, means country has to return this. What they actually want, they want that should be in the form of grant. Okay, environmental grant should be given to the developing countries. That's why it is problematic. Next topic is global financial mechanism under UNFCCC. There are many other funds under the UNFCCC. First is the loss and damage fund. It was established during COP27 held in Egypt and operationalized in COP28 Dubai. That is last year it is operationalized to finance assistance to the countries, vulnerable countries. It actually means the countries which are already facing the losses and damage due to the climate change are demanding for the fund, and it was actually approved, means operationalized, not approved. It is approved in this 27 only. It was operationalized from 28 COP 28 Dubai last year. Okay. Next is the Green Climate Fund, established in COP 16 2010 for developed countries to mobilize $100 billion per year by 2020 to support developing countries realize their NDC ambition, that is nationally determined contribution ambition. Actually, it is already being mentioned, like this is set, see this. $100 billion annual target set in 2009. It was actually operationalized in 2010 in COP 16. Even though it is not given, you all know, like this $100 billion per dollar per year is even not given to the developing countries. Next is Adaptation Fund. Adaptation Fund established in 2001 to finance concrete adaptation project program in developing countries parties to the Kyoto Protocol. Next is again these small funds are there, like a Special Climate Fund that is again established in 2001. Least Developed Countries Fund that is again established in 2001. This is not very important, already means established in 2001. For just you should know the name that these are the funds under the UNFCCC, that is Adaptation Fund, the Special Climate Change Fund and the Least Developed Countries Fund. Next is other related news. Funds to respond to loss and damage fund. Actually, the name has been changed. The loss and damage fund decided to call fund to respond to loss and damage. Earlier it was loss and damage fund. Now it is fund to respond loss and damage. Loss and damage refer to the negative consequences that arises from the unavoidable risk of the climate change, like rising sea levels, prolonged heat waves, desertification, ocean acidification, etc. About fund to respond to loss and damage established in COP27 UNFCCC, that is in Egypt in 2022. Host country for the board of the fund is Philippines. Purpose help the developing countries compensate for the loss and damages. Okay, next is Global Environment Facility. First, see what is it. It is actually international financial institution that provides funding for the projects that is actually related with the environmental sustainability. It was actually established in 1991. You all know this is established in 1991 and works to address the global environmental issues by supporting the developing countries. So recently 67th meeting is held and Global Environment Facility Council approves $736 million funding. What is the key outcomes of this? Funding has been mobilized for projects from the Global Environment Facility Trust Fund, Least Developed Countries Fund and the Global Biodiversity Framework Fund, which together are the part of Global Environmental Facility family of the funds. This includes the project like Great Green Wall, Sustainable Cities Integrated Program, etc. Great Green Wall focused on restoring landscape and ecosystem across the Sahel region of Africa, and Sustainable Cities Integrated Program is a 20-country program aimed to catalyze urban system transformation. It also includes two Indian projects. First is enhancing the conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity to meet commitment to the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework target. Second is cohabitat, conservation and sustainable management of wetland, forest and grassland to secure the population of migratory species along the Central Asian Flyway in India. These projects are implemented by the UNEP along with the Indian Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, acting as the executive agency. Next is about the Global Environment Facility. I have already discussed. It is established in 1992 during the eve of Rio de Janeiro. Partnership of 18 agencies to address world most challenging and environmental issues. Governance. Global Environmental Facility Council is the main governing body. What is the functions? It serves financial mechanism for 5 conventions. First is UNFCCC, second is CBD, that is Convention on Biodiversity. Next is UNCCD, that is United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutant and Minamata Convention on Mercury. GF trustee is World Bank, member country is 186. These are not very important. What are the key initiatives and focus area? This is a small grant program that supports the community-led initiatives in conservation. Least Developed Country Fund supports adaptation projects in the vulnerable nations. A Special Climate Change Fund that focuses on addressing the climate variability. Planet Gold, that is aims to reduce the mercury use in artisanal and a small scale gold mining. Blue Nature Alliance conserves ocean and marine biodiversity. Just look into this, no need to go in very detail. Next is Antarctic Treaty, one of the most important topic for this year. 46th Antarctic Treaty Consultative Meeting and 26th Committee on the Environmental Protection concluded in India. So it is held in India. That's why I told it is important. What more in news? These were hosted by National Center for Polar and Ocean Research. You need to know the name of this organization, that is National Center for Polar and Ocean Research, that is under the Ministry of Earth Sciences, Government of India. NCPOR, that is National Center for Polar and Ocean Research, was established as an autonomous research and development institute in 1998. it measures decisions and resolutions adopted at the ATCM, that is Antarctic Treaty Consultative Meeting, give effect to the principle of Antarctic Treaty. Now it is given more about the Antarctic Treaty. Actually, you should know about the Antarctic Treaty. First thing, this is the first international non-armament treaty. It is actually the first international non-armament treaty. Non-armament treaty. Actually, second being the Outer Space Treaty. The first is the Antarctic Treaty that establishes the Antarctica as a zone of peace and scientific cooperation by prohibiting military activities and nuclear explosions. It came into the force in 1961. 57 out of 29 are the consultative parties, and India has been a consultative party since 1983. Applicability, this is also important. Applicability, the area south of the 60th south latitude. Next is the key provisions. Antarctic shall be used for the peaceful purpose only, as I have discussed. Facilitate international scientific cooperation in Antarctica. Prohibits nuclear explosion, radioactive waste disposal, and the military deployment in Antarctica. Other efforts to safeguard the Antarctica Convention for the Conservation of Antarctic Seals 1972, Convention on Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources 1982, that is ratified by India, Protocol on Environmental Protection to Antarctic Treaty, that is Madrid Protocol 1991, it is also signed by India. This Madrid Protocol, actually this is important for exam also, Madrid Protocol, this actually strengthened the environmental protection by banning the mining in Antarctic. So no mining can be done at least for 50 years, means till year 2048 there should be no mining in the Antarctic region. Next is India's Antarctic initiatives. First is Research Station, next is Antarctic Act. First is Research Station. This is Dakshin Gangotri in 1983, first research station. This is not operational now. Currently operational is the Maitri in 1989 and Bharti in 2012. Maitri 2 announced in ATCM, that is 46th meeting. Next is Antarctic Act, reaffirming treaty commitment and enacted in 2022. Next is Climate Technology Center and Network. It marks its 10th anniversary, not important. Headquarters is Denmark, not important. It is established in 2014. It is implementation arm of technology mechanism of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So we have seen there is technology mechanism, means new technology is established to regulate, to see into that there is Climate Technology Center and Network. It is hosted by the UNEP, that is United Nations Environment Program. It promotes accelerate transfer of environment sound technology for low carbon climate resilience development at request of the developing countries. Next is Climate Promise Initiative. United Nations Development Program unveiled Climate Promise 2025. Next stage of the Climate Promise Initiative is the world's largest offer of support to developing countries on NDCs, enhancement and implementation. Climate Promise 2025 aims to align next generation of developing countries to goal of 2015 Paris Climate Agreement. Next is Greening Education Partnership. This was launched by UNESCO. This is having two main tools: new greening curriculum guidance first and the new greening school quality standards second. Under the Greening Education Partnership means it is global initiative comprising 80 member states and support countries to tackle the climate crisis by harnessing the critical role of education. So it will try to educate. Next is Climate Policy Initiative. This Climate Policy Initiative released global leadership of the Climate Finance 2024 during NFCCC COP29. This is an independent, not-for-profit organization with deep expertise in the financial policies. It was founded in 2009 and supports the nation's low carbon economies to develop and implement effective climate, energy and land use policies. So these all are not very important. So means you no need to remember climate policy initiative and all these things. No need to remember. Just look into it. Okay. Next is science based target initiative. This is climate expert voice concern regarding the science based target initiative decision allowing the companies to offset greenhouse gas emission from their value chain. This SBTi is a corporate climate action organization that enables companies and the financial institutions worldwide to combat the climate crisis. Next is National Information System for Climate and the Environmental Studies program. This program has invited Indian researchers to join in combating climate change. Actually, this program was conceptualized in 2012, operated by ISRO and Department of Space with the other ministries under the framework of National Action Plan on Climate Change. Its objective is generation and dissemination of long-term essential climate variabilities derived from Indian and other Earth observation satellites, which are crucial for the characterizing the Earth's climate. Now aims to enhance participation of academia and research institutions in addressing the climate change related challenges through the multidisciplinary scientific investigation. Next is International Network for Terrestrial Research and Monitoring the Arctic. A simple one, just look into the heading, that is Interact, a project of larger network research station focused on the Arctic and surround regions. If you want to remember, just remember that Interact is a project related to the Arctic. Next is MYAC, 1 Million Youth Actions Challenge. 1 Million Youth Actions Challenge is promoted by one UN Climate Change Learning Partnership. That's it for the today's video. Next topic is the climate mitigation and adaptation. We will see in the next video. Thank you. Please like and share.